Hello, hello. I'm here today with Robbie, and Robbie is here to talk about some of his passions, and those that I know of are sound and frequency.
Everything at its core level is made up of vibration. So if we can learn to tune into what I call these magical frequencies, they can really aid in so many forms of healing, help people who are already practicing modalities to enhance their modality, and help in so many ways. And there's also other applications in the world, like 0 point energy applications, and so much technology can benefit from it as well.
That massive oil slick now covering some 600 square miles of the Gulf of Mexico, and it could start reaching the United States coast within hours.
Okay, explain what we got here and what we're going to do today.
We have about 6,000 pounds of equipment here from Hutchison's lab in New Westminster, which is right outside of Vancouver. So this is actually the equipment we use for doing anti-gravity work. And this is a large interferometer which modulates and mixes the radio frequencies. And this is part of what we do. We're doing audio and radio, and in projecting the audio across, what we're hoping to do is what we did in Perdido, which was bounce the wave back and forth across the water. When we tested in Perdido, we had an oscilloscope stuck on the dock about 300 yards out, and the oscilloscope was flatlined. We were getting no reading off the water. And as soon as we started playing these tones across the water, the oscilloscope started jumping with what's called sympathetic resonance. So the water was picking up the tones. And what we're trying to do is bring the water back into its proper frequency. When we tested this in John's lab, we had samples of water sent up to us from Biloxi Bay, and we opened up a quart of it, and we got hit with hydrogen sulfide so hard we had headaches for 2 days. I mean, it looked like it was clear, but when I took a high-def video on it, you could see the suspended oil in it. And we used these tones on it, and it became clear and clean seawater. We have our tests were tap water and seawater from the Pacific, and we had this particular water from the Gulf, and we put electrodes into each of them. The tap water and the seawater from the Pacific had a very similar, almost identical reading on the oscilloscope, and what we got from the Gulf was just bizarre. I mean, just a really strange reading, totally distorted reading, but after applying the frequencies, they were all the same. So we knew that what we were doing was restoring water back to its frequency. Everything is frequency. And water, people don't even understand. Scientists can't tell you what water is, but water has a certain frequency. And if we can tell it, it's okay. And we bring these tones out there, which are very ancient, from thousands of years ago. Our object is to bring the water back to its proper frequency, and the water will clean itself. We're not blasting oil out of here. We're not doing anything that's harmful. We're just getting the water back into its proper frequency. It's that tone that's really important right there. There it goes. That's what we saw in the oscilloscope.
The scientists are seeing this side of, oh, they were at these tunings, but we can only speculate as what to it heals. And then it's taking that side of the esoteric side and marrying the two. Like, as you know, with modern science isn't really married with the esoteric side, whereas in the ancients, that's why I believe they were so advanced, and things are coming out now that they were way more advanced than we were. They had, 0-point energy, wireless energy that's been hidden from us. And a lot of the energy buildings have been repurposed into cathedrals. They were using sound with art, with theatre, with water, with extracting energy from the ether to not only heal, but also to create power to light up their cities.
Yes, it's really interesting that it's a possibility that those buildings were actually designed for healing purposes rather than places of worship. So, do we have any of that sort of science or technology being used now, to your knowledge, or has it sort of been a bit of a lost art or art of healing?
Yeah, good question, Daniel. Again, the more I research, the more you go down the rabbit hole, the more you're blown away by this stuff. It seems that there was, like, if we go back to first the ancients, there was the Temple of Halsafani, which is in Malta. It's an underground carved into rock temple, and that resonates at 111 hertz, which we now know, science is catching up. We now know can temporarily shut off the prefrontal cortex, which is our overthinking side, and fire up our right-hand creative side of our brain. So it has so many uses in things like bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, autism. If we can play them a tuning like 111 hertz and they become more in a flow state. So the original hydrotherapy, we now know hydrotherapy is just people in water getting healed, right?
Right.
But the ancient version of hydrotherapy is now coming out, and a lot of this stuff has been hidden and for various reasons. Obviously, it doesn't go in line with the modern medical side of things that are a profitable patient for life. Whereas there's signs that they used to utilize water with sound frequencies, with electricity, and that was the true hydrotherapy. Right. And now, now we're not using the right frequencies. If they are playing music in hydrotherapy sessions, are they aware of tunings like 111 hertz, 528 hertz, 432 hertz? Are they aware of the power of these tunings?
That's really interesting about the hydrotherapy. Like, they're using one aspect of it, but then they're forgetting that other aspect of the frequency and the sound.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good way to lead into how sound therapy and using these frequencies actually work. Is it having an effect on the water in our body? Is that what it's doing? Or is it more working on the structural part of the cell? Or, like, do you know how it works specifically?
Yes. So as far as we know now, and a lot of people argue with this, but Nikola Tesla was once found to said, what can light be other than a sound wave in the ether? Okay, so we used to be told, when I went to school in the 80s, we were told that, atoms was the lowest vibrational thing in our body. Then we were told electrons. Now we know it's sound wave. Everything is sound. So everything comes from sound. And all the ancient scripts, it's like science is catching up with the ancient doctrines and the old Bibles, no matter what religion you're in. They all say first there was the sound. Some say Om, and, for the universe to become conscious, and then light comes from sound. So good question. I believe both. So water is structurally, so the crystal bowls we play in, and we also teach in our sound healing courses, if they're tuned correctly, but crystal essentially is fossilized water.
Right.
So that's why crystal bowls have such an effect on people. It's and water the more we're learning about what the ancients used the water for. They're saying a lot of people talk about the memory of everything in water is held in water. And ancients always talked about that, and we're now catching up with that water has memory, and now science is catching up with that. So our latest computer chips that we have are called super memory crystal chips, and these chips can hold billions of terabytes for billions of years, they say, of information in these new computer chips, and they're made from crystals, which is fossilized water.
Interesting.
And then we look at the things like the Stonehenges, like Stonehenge and many standing stones I found throughout Australia. So a lot of it's been covered up and bulldozed. You might have heard about the Mullumbimby Stonehenge that was found. It's probably more important than Stonehenge, you know, that everyone talks about overseas. So, but the thing about these Stonehenges is they were using sound. We're now discovering they resonate at certain frequencies. The stones, you'll often see, like in Stonehenge, the pictures of it, you'll see smallest standing stones in front of larger standing stones. Now, we've worked out why that is. With acoustic specialists have tested this, and by bouncing sound off. So in Stonehenge, someone could be singing, and if you have your eyes shut, you would hear that noise of the singing, or you know, a musical instrument or a crystal bowl playing. You would hear it all around you, so you wouldn't know what direction it would come from. And even more amazing is we've discovered these what's called standing waves, the way waves can pressure into these rocks and bounce off, and that's why you can't hear the direction, because they're bouncing. But now they've now discovered, we were always told light was faster than sound, but that's in fact not true, because sound can change its speed, and it's been proven in simple experiments that sound can be faster than the speed of light by creating this bounce effect, where the sound waves, when they bounce and collect against each other, they become faster and faster. So many applications there towards 0 point energy, but also towards healing. We're finding in all the old native drawings, a lot of them where you see especially swirling patterns. Yeah, they're actually cymatics that they were actually putting on their caves, that we're now finding are all resonance devices generally to heal, or to take people into states of very low hertz waves, so they become in trance-like states. They're starting with a higher hertz frequency, and from it bouncing off walls, it's bringing down to a lower hertz that we can't even hear. See, we can't hear generally lower than 20 hertz. But when you mentioned the pipe organs, the largest pipe organs, they go down to 8 hertz.
Oh, really?
So why are there notes they're playing that we can't actually hear?
Interesting.
It's more for healing, and for maybe, as we're finding out now, for creating power, things like that.
And when you mentioned memory before, I've been thinking about the memory of water and how it's able to hold memory for such a long time. And that's now I'm sort of trying to work out whether or not that's how we have memories within our brain. It's actually the water that holds the memory and not the physical tissue. And maybe that's actually where things like consciousness come from, as well as the vibration of the water and the frequency on the water. And I also sort of think that maybe this is the way the nervous system works, or the body communicates with itself, because you mentioned about cymatics. So is it possible then that the frequencies within our body change somehow, and it causes instant change in another part of the tissue? Because when you read the textbooks on how the nervous system works, like if you actually worked out how long it took to send a signal from your brain to your big toe and wiggle your big toe, it's like 3/4 of a second, right? It's not instant. So that mechanism to me doesn't really make sense. But the frequency of water change, or frequencies that cause water to change, is actually probably more of a accurate hypothesis of how that might work. I don't know if
Yes.
you've got any thoughts on that.
Yes, well, water holds the secrets to many, many things that are, unknown to us. Maybe if you know them, but they have obviously up till now kept these secrets to themselves. Water, yeah, I believe holds memory of everything. We're now finding out a certain tuning. We can even affect, when you mention cells, with tunings we've now zoned in on, and science is now, they're doing. Not that I'm for this, but often people say, have you got peer-reviewed studies on this stuff? But as some of us know, peer-reviewed often means, some joker agreeing with another joker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not wanting to rock the boat because that's his, the guy he looks up to and has taught him, or his professor, right? But for people who want that sort of evidence, there's now been peer-reviewed studies even about how certain tunings can affect things like alcoholism. So we found that a certain frequency we're zoning in on now, which I'm very passionate about, not only is known to structure water and to restructure water, so to put more life force energy into water, to increase its minerals content, and to actually can clean water technically. They found in peer-reviewed studies that this same frequency can lower cell destruction in alcoholics by listening to they found at a certain decibel, so loudness of 80 decibels, for only around 4 minutes can reduce cell deaths in alcoholics by 20%. So
Wow.
reduce and that's the biggest thing that affects, and people pass away from alcoholism, is the cell destruction, right? So they found, that this tuning. So imagine how that could have applications in rehab centers. If people still are addicted in going to pubs, how they could be playing this in pubs to, to negate the effects of the alcohol on the cells and in destroying them. But I mean, in a healthy person, we've also found that same tuning can increase cell virility by 100%. So twofold. Wow. Yeah.
And you got to wonder, like, if the music that's played in these pubs or even just on TV or radio or whatever is played at a certain frequency, which induces people to want to have to drink in the first place, like
exactly. Yeah. It's very live vibrational, and the same songs can be retuned that we love. And I always say, when musicians say to me, oh, I don't believe in your tuning, it's a load of dung and stuff like that, I always say, well, you're a musician, do a blind test. Listen, there's plenty of blind tests on YouTube where you can listen to the same song played live or recorded, and you don't know what order you're hearing them in. You can close your eyes, and which one sounds more calm? And in these blind tests, there was one, I think more than 80% of 2,000 people tested preferred 432 hertz to 440 hertz. And they used to describe 432 hertz words like bliss, I felt at peace. 440 hertz, I feel angry, I feel, it doesn't feel good, things like that. They were using their words to describe how they were feeling. And smaller tests, they were finding the same thing.
And that's where I think science needs to get back to, Robbie, is that real, tangible, natural science, where you can observe something happening with your own eyes or your own ears or your 5-6 senses, rather than all this other stuff where we try to go deeper and deeper with a microscope into a cell to work out all the intricate happenings.
Exactly.
We got to flip it on its head and go more macro here. And that's a perfect example of how we can prove that this therapy using different frequencies is actually having a beneficial effect. And it's interesting because I used to do a lot of laser therapy in my clinic, and we'd use different frequencies for different tissues and different conditions. And that was based on light and like the wavelengths and the impulse of light, which I guess at the end of the day is probably just sound anyway.
Yes. Well, you might have heard of Phaser technology, which is the new laser technology that they say is faster than the speed of light. That is utilizing sound, Phaser technology.
Interesting.
So that's one proof that sound can become faster than light. There's natives who are sea-dwelling people who can actually walk along the bottom of the sea floor. There's we now know that there's a human that was able to breathe in, I think it was 2012, underwater for 22 to 23 minutes. Most dolphins can only breathe underwater for 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
Us as humans, we're built to evolve more and more and more, and very quickly. And what's holding us back, and what can help us reach those next stages, where the the esoteric belief often talks about entering 5D, entering new realms of consciousness. Even science will agree that there's more dimensions than what we perceive. They used to say, I remember 15 years ago watching quantum physics documentaries, and they're saying, we know there's at least 11 dimensions, right? Having access to these things, having access to be able to, the DNA strand is an infinite loop, isn't it? It should really repair itself and be able to keep repairing itself. The Sumerians had the Sumerian kings list that's come out. It showed kings reigning for hundreds of years. How were they able to live for hundreds of years, if that is true? Whether you believe that or not, I believe that the human being is made to last a long, long time.
Yes.